Museum Station. Doors will open on left.
Hey people, it is Wednesday, November the 24th, and the time is 11:50 in the morning, and the temperature is 6 degrees Celsius. And I'm here at Museum Station. This is probably the nicest subway station in the entire subway system, according to many people. And it's called Museum Station, and it has these imitation artifacts because this station is right at the Royal Ontario Museum. So we're going to ascend up to the street right by the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum. And I thought for today's walk we'd walk past several museums in the city, 3 of which are up in this area, and one a little ways to the south. So here we are, Queen's Park. It's looking south. And this is the eastern entrance to the Royal Ontario Museum. And just across the street is the Gardiner Museum. So a few things about the ROM. It's the largest museum in Canada and one of the largest in North America. It was established in 1912 but opened in 1914. And it contains over 6 million items in 40 galleries. And you could literally spend hours wandering around in here. I've done it several times. Now once we get over to Bloor Street, we'll see the new addition to the ROM, the McCaul crystal. But before we get to that, just across the street here is the Gardiner Museum, which is a ceramics museum. And this one opened in 1984. And it has over 4,000 ceramic pieces inside. And I've actually never been to this museum. So that's on my list of Toronto things to do as a Torontonian. So we'll just head over to the northern side of the ROM, and we'll take a look at the McCaul crystal. The museum underwent a major renovation in the early 2000s, And there's a look east down Bloor Street. And here you can see the McCaul St crystal, as they call it. So this was constructed in 2006 and opened up in 2007. And it's been met with criticism and praise. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think it looks pretty cool. The original concept was for this to be all crystal, like glass and crystal in its entirety, and as you can see, that didn't really turn out that way, but nevertheless it still looks very interesting and quite striking. Even though it did undergo a cheapening, as they call it. That happens to a lot of ambitious development proposals. When they actually get built, they don't quite turn out the way that they were originally envisioned due to costs. So now we're going to head westward for a bit to our next museum. I guess those are the bells at the church at the corner of Avenue Road. The Church of the Redeemer. I was trying to remember the name of it. That's what it's called. Well, another thing I'd like to mention about the ROM, apparently it contains the oldest intact entire human brain. That's a little tidbit of information that I just learned about the ROM. I believe it's an Egyptian, part of the Egyptian exhibit. Here's Varsity Stadium at U of T. In my recent Beatles history walk, I didn't make it up to Varsity Stadium, but there is a bit of Beatles lore attached to this location. John Lennon and Yoko Ono played their first concert here as the Plastic Ono Band in 1969, I believe May of 1969. Or was it September? Maybe it was September. My bad. September of 1969. And that concert was called Live Peace in Toronto. It was a rock and roll revival, starring lots of 1950s era rock and roll stars and a few modern day additions such as Plastic Ono Band, The Doors, and Alice Cooper, one of his first shows. Actually, he gained his notoriety at this show. Before then, they were relatively an unknown band. And the story goes that Alice Cooper was on stage performing, and someone from the audience threw a chicken on stage, and then Alice Cooper picked it up, and he didn't know anything about chickens, so he thought if he threw it up in the air it would fly away. So he threw it towards the crowd, and it didn't fly, of course, it just fell back into the crowd, and unfortunately it met its demise in a gruesome fashion. Some overexcited fans made short work of the chicken, and it made headlines, and that's kind of what launched Alice Cooper's reputation as a shock musician. The shock rock genre, you could say, maybe was born on that day. So anyway, back to museums, because now we're approaching our third museum. And this is the Bata Shoe Museum. That's right, it's a museum of shoes. And this one was opened in 1995. But I believe it was established in 1979. It didn't have a permanent home, though, until they built this facility in 1995. And it contains over 13,000 shoes, going back over 4,500 years of footwear history. And this is another museum I've never been to, but it does have excellent reviews, and the reviews say things like it's a lot more interesting and fun than they expected it to be, and things of that nature. So even if you're not a footwear enthusiast, this would probably be a very interesting place to go and wander around in for an hour or two. There's some interesting displays here. Are those Crocs? So now we're on St. George Street. We're heading south. So the last museum on our little tour is quite a ways south of here. So we'll just enjoy a walk through the U of T campus and some other interesting streets along the way. And if you haven't already guessed, the Art Gallery of Ontario is our destination. I'll talk about that when we get down there. This is the St. George campus of University of Toronto. A lot of these old houses are being used as university buildings now, and some of them are fraternity houses as well. Yeah, it's a pretty beautiful day right now. It's a bit warmer than it has been the last couple of days. I think it's supposed to get up to around 8 degrees Celsius today. And there's not much wind. Just as I say that, a gust of wind blows up. We're just passing by Robarts Library, which is the largest library in the University of Toronto campus, the main library, and probably I think the largest library in all of Canada. I think it houses or contains over 10 million items. This is a bit of a book museum in its own right. This building is also considered to be one of the ugliest buildings and also one of the most awesome examples of brutalist architecture. It's another love-hate kind of structure. Just the rare books section of the library itself is quite huge. It's pretty busy on campus right now. Crossing Harvard Street. So this is kind of like the main street of the St. George campus. Makes sense, St. George Street being the main street of the St. George campus.
Which is fine because I need to be able to get
I guess it is lunchtime. This is a mobile vaccine clinic in a Go bus. It's Go Transit, Government of Ontario commuter transit service. It's kind of cool. They turned one of their buses into a mobile clinic. As you can see, this campus is a mix of old historic buildings and new modern structures. And I think it's done very well. It's just the right mix. And the modern buildings on campus are very well done, very well designed. I have done some more thorough walks of the U of T campus in previous videos. That's interesting. We're playing tequila. Tequila. And since we're walking through campus, I guess I might as well mention that U of T is considered the highest ranked university in Canada and one of the top universities in the world. It often ranks in the top 25 universities on the planet. And it's also one of the largest campuses in North America, at least. The largest in Canada for sure. I think in total there's something like 65,000 students. That's divided up into a few campuses. There's two suburban campuses, one in Scarborough and another in Mississauga. Of course, they're much smaller. The bulk of the student body is here on the main campus.
So, you know, just a little like uneasy about that. So that was like the lowest. The highest high was like on Saturday.
This phone booth has seen better days. It's still working though. Usually these things no longer work whenever I come across them. I can't even remember the last time I tried to use a public phone booth.
That was like the high. And then all the other while, I've been having
Probably a good
just like basically almost such a massive.
over 10 years easily, maybe 12, 13 years ago, I would guess. And here's College Street. So this is where the U of T campus comes to an end. It does run to the east and west along College Street a little ways.
Oh, wow.
There's the 506 Carlton.
وبعدين on the borders of the project خلاص مش to announce she to announce it فاهمة؟ يعني انت كأنك you're partnering on the announcement.
So now we're on Beverley Street. This is a very nice, mainly residential street.
Yeah, we'll help you get out of here. Thank you.
It's a nice mix of old row houses, some classic Toronto Bay and Gable houses. Oh, and here's a fraternity house way down here. I never noticed this before. I think a lot of these homes are mostly divided up into apartments, housing students. Here's your Royal Canadian Legion branch and the Polish Combatants Association.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna feel like go.
Man, some of these old homes are absolutely massive. I can only imagine back to when they were a single detached unit. Although this one looks like it might have been, well, maybe it was a one giant house at one time. This is interesting. Felix's swim school. I always notice new things every time I walk through some areas that I've walked through many times before. And this one's called George Brown House. And most of the houses along here do date from the 19th century, the later 19th century. So here's Baldwin Street. So since we're here, I might as well take a little walk through Baldwin Village on our way down to the Art Gallery of Ontario. This is an interesting little commercial enclave and restaurant row, sort of tucked away here. Hello. Hi there. So this is a popular place in the warm weather months for patios. A lot of these restaurants have these outdoor patios. And there has been a bit of a rough go of things here for a little while along this part of Baldwin Street due to some fires that have destroyed some long-standing buildings, such as this site right here. So hopefully that will be rebuilt, looking similar to how it looked before, in keeping with the streetscape. There used to be a record store here, but it's gone now. I think that's where the record store used to be. I always thought this place kind of stood out. Just seems a little uncharacteristic of the rest of the block. I believe Baldwin Street sort of attained its character as a kind of a alternative spot during the Vietnam War era when American draft dodgers lived in the area. Kind of made this their little hangout strip. So now we're on McCaul Street.
Anyway, we just give you a talk.
Krispy Kreme. This is one of the first locations, I believe, in the city right there.
Years later, they're not less changed than expectations. Well, I hope there's two expectations.
Yeah, I think that.
And over here you can see our final destination, the Art Gallery of Ontario. Its new addition sort of popping up in the background, that large blue thing. We'll get a closer look at that.
You like to see the way you remember yourself.
St. Patrick's Catholic Church.
I'm sorry.
Sin and Redemption Pub and Lounge. Yeah, it wouldn't be Toronto if we didn't pass by a construction site of a new condo tower.
I went to the aerosol lab to do some studies.
And here we are. This is the Royal make that the Art Gallery of Ontario. I guess I'm still thinking about that ancient human brain in the ROM. So this is Dundas Street West and McCaul. That's looking into the core of downtown, just to the east. Oops. Drop something. So the Art Gallery of Ontario, it was established in 1900 and incorporated in 1903. And it was originally called the Art Gallery of Toronto. And they took that name in 1919, and then in 1966 it was renamed the Art Gallery of Ontario. So from this perspective it looks like a modern building, but it's actually an old historic building. This modern facade we're passing now is a recent addition. Frank Gehry designed this modern addition to the gallery. And that was built around the same time as the modern addition to the ROM in the mid-2000s. This is one of the largest art museums in Canada, also. I think it's close to 500,000 square feet. So here's Beverley Street again, so we'll just walk around to the rear of the gallery to show you the other side where the Frank Gehry addition sits on top of the old historic building. This is Grange Park just up ahead. You can see this modern addition from quite a ways south of here along John Street. Sort of terminates the vista looking north up John Street, and from far away it looks quite curious and interesting. If you didn't know or weren't familiar with the city, you'd wonder what the heck that was. Because this is what you see. There you can see the old historic part of the gallery. And this very Frank Gehry-esque addition plunked on top. And I believe there's one day of the week where there's free admission to get into the Art Gallery of Ontario, and also at the ROM, or at least they used to. That tends to change from time to time. And another bizarre structure right here is part of the Ontario College of Art and Design, OCAD University. So it kind of complements the bizarre design of the new edition of the art gallery. So I guess that's it for my little walkabout past some downtown museums and the Art Gallery of Ontario. So I'm going to wrap things up. Hope you enjoyed my little cultural walk. And leave a comment below if you did. And like and share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description where you can do so via PayPal. And also via my merch store. And you can also find me on Instagram under KContinuum. So thanks for watching, and be sure to keep checking back because, as always, I will continue.
Confidence, we need better testing.
So, whatever, we submitted it to the commission. There were some efforts to disrupt it, but I wasn't happening. So we put together a really, really solid document. Well, we exhausted the union. No, we as individuals. The union no longer represents you. Once you exhaust the union, so I organized